All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you again for joining us this Friday for our 7th online series forum. This is actually our 2nd week of the Reboot series, so we want to take us in another direction and really apply some of the things we've been talking about all these weeks to the change and the new processes and maybe new word tracks that you might be using. We want to drive more customer appointments and start increasing gross now. So I'm going to share with you up front here, as we have done every week, some of the best practices that we're hearing about and seeing across our industry. Then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Vaughn, one of our directors of training, and he's going to talk more specifically again about professional phone skills and appointment setting skills and processes to really, again, start getting customers back in the door and driving up service sales and gross profit. And so now more than ever, it's even more important for you to exceed your customers' expectations. This should always be the goal, of course. And when we're in our stores, our beautiful waiting rooms, lounges with our kids space and our free Wi-Fi and our wonderful coffee bars, those amenities kind of help exceed expectations and present a certain picture to the customer that we really value them and have some nice things to offer them in addition to the wonderful people that are working at our stores. But we don't have those to rely on right now. We don't have the coffee bars and the free Wi-Fi, and we're actually having to work differently in order to create that personal space for people. So what can you do to exceed your customers' expectations through this coronavirus and the challenges that we're kind of facing here? Now more than ever, your customers want information. And that is obviously with regard to what you're doing to keep their safety and well-being in mind at your store. But you also need to think about how they get that information, and reaching your customers more effectively has to become a priority in your store. So if you're not already using things like email and or texting with your team and your customers, you really need to push on that and make that a priority right now, or at least in the next 3, 4, 5 months. You're going to really miss the boat on capturing some more customers that like to communicate this way with you. So when we compare email versus texting, 1 in 5 emails are opened by customers. When a link is included in an email, 2% of the customers that open that email will actually click on the link. So let's say you send a link of a video of the work being done on their vehicle, or maybe you just send a link to an article describing what the work is. Maybe it's a diagram explaining the work that's being completed on their vehicle. So you get about 2 out of every 100 emails that are opened. So not a big open and success rate with regard to getting customers to do what you want them to do via email. And then when we look at texting, but still very viable, we still want to communicate often, and we want to communicate broadly. In other words, not just by the telephone, but by email and text message and videos. When we look at text messaging, these are really impactful numbers. Consider that 90% of texts are read within 3 minutes. Almost 100% of texts are read within 24 hours of someone receiving them. And 19% of the links that are within a text message that you send to your customer are clicked on. So you're accomplishing much more via text message with your computer, with your customers. It's immediate and you get what you want versus a lot of back and forth via email or the telephone. Interestingly enough, I also learned this recently from an NADA webinar I attended. Customers will opt in to receive texts from the service department more often than they'll opt in to receive those texts from the sales department. And it makes sense. You know, they understand the relationship with service, and plus they have a sense of urgency. They want to hear from you and they want to know when they're going to get their vehicle back. So take advantage of that. You've got friendly people there ready to receive your text messages. Here are some sample texts, and I'm not going to go into them in depth, but I just know that the first step in texting your customers, particularly right now, is to let them know that there are new ways to get their vehicle serviced from you. If you're offering free pickup and delivery or a paid for pickup and delivery service, that's the time to introduce that, or if it's a no contact zone for them to bring their vehicle in. So you start by introducing yourself and telling them, you know, what are your new hours and how can they get their car to you? And once they accept, then you can go ahead and start asking them questions, start servicing them. Would you like to reach sales, parts, or service? And then go ahead and converse with them. And in this particular case, it's a sales conversation that the customer decided they wanted to have. if your customers right now are not in your drive like they used to be, where are they? There's a lot of really good statistics out there right now that say your customers are searching the web. There's a 32% increase in automotive search traffic right now with everyone uh, abiding by stay-at-home orders. So they're searching for sales, for service, for maintenance of their vehicles, and they're also searching to see, are you open? What's going on at your store? So that's a big number, and again, you need to be available online. 25% of Google automotive searches are for service. So 1 in every 4 searches, they're specifically looking for maintenance, for repairs, and for parts. And when you consider the Google My Business box, and for those of you that may not be aware, that's what this is. So I'm sure you've done it many times yourself. I know I use this very frequently, trying to find out the hours of a store, or I usually am really clicking on the phone number. So this Google My Business box, you should make sure that that's updated for your store. And if your dealer or your marketing department is obviously in charge of updating that, and you check it out on your end from a service standpoint, look at the products side. See what's posted there. If there are no products posted, suggest that they post something for service, whether it's you have a complimentary sanitize and disinfect for your customers, or if you just want to talk about the free pickup and delivery service you're offering. They tell us that 50% of searches that are done on, or 50% of searches click on that Google My Business box, but they click even more when they see a special offer down here. It's kind of like having a mini billboard, and it doesn't cost you anything. There's no cost to this. This is your free Google My Business listing. So you can offer a special, you can update your hours, you can mention safety protocols and things like that there. There was a Cox Automotive study that was done recently. I think this came out at the end of 2019 because I remember reading it, and it came up again on a webinar recently, and it said the #1 desire of service customers is to have pickup and delivery. And so why not give them what they want? Now is the time. This challenge, this coronavirus situation has given customers something that they want despite dealers. We've all adapted and made that service available. Whether it's temporary or you decide to make it permanent, I'd invite you to consider the benefits to that to your customers, and I would say in a long-term scenario. So it's a better way to beat your aftermarket competitors. They don't always have the resources that you have. They don't have the staffing. They don't have the vehicles. They don't have the time or resources to offer that kind of a service. Customers have responded positively. They're making a great argument as to why you need to start offering this. And if you remember from last week's webinar, we had a statistic that said 32% of dealerships in the US were offering pickup and delivery prior to coronavirus. So lots of opportunity for many of you to improve on that. That leaves, 68% of you that are not offering that service. You can utilize a local towing company. Some are willing to discount significantly right now because they're hurting. And so if we can get them busy and get them some business, they'll offer that at a significantly reduced rate if you utilize them to do your free pickup and delivery. And then make a video of your process and text it to your customers. Show them what that looks like. We talked again last week about you've told them, now show them. Get a video posted on YouTube, on your website, or even blast it out to your customers in email and text message. Seeing is so much more powerful, and it really takes away their fear or their concern about is everybody protecting themselves? They can see that your folks are wearing gloves or masks or whatever the protocol is at your store. But B, a lot of people they don't want to start something new. It's change. I don't know what it looks like. I'll just make a phone call and set my appointment like I usually do. But if they can see it in video, it's much more convincing. Giving customers what they want right now has to include peace of mind. They need to feel confident in doing business with you. So here are a couple resources that I'm showing you. There's a driven guide that NADA is putting out, and I've pulled some of this information from there. This is also a really nice piece where they talk about if you have a customer that enters your service drive that has had the coronavirus, what is the protocol that your employees should follow if it is in fact a vehicle or a customer that has carried the virus. So you want to follow those specifically as well. A lot of folks are talking about refreshing your original update that you made to your customers via website and online. So when's the last time you posted anything new on your website about what your dealership is doing to accommodate customers? update your hours if those have changed, or if you're providing specific hours for high-risk groups. There's also an idea out there, folks are using laminated tags and cards that identify what has been sanitized. So you can use this in your customer reception area in service. We had a dealership that said it was just a card, and on one side it said this seat has been sanitized for your safety, and the other side it said it needs to be sanitized for the next customer. So when the customer gets up, they take the card, they flip it over. That way you're not spending additional labor hours, man hours to clean things that maybe don't need to be disinfected. They're more easily identified. Free sanitizing, excuse me, for vehicles with no purchase. Provide that to hospital workers, first responders, maybe grocery store employees, people that have been on the front lines, as they say. This is such a terrific thing to reach out to your community with if that's something that you have the ability to offer. Another idea was giving out free hand sanitizer to your customers, or, if you want to give it when they come through the drive and purchase something. But there are a lot of local places I know by us. There's distilleries that have started producing hand sanitizer, and I've seen plenty of those articles in the news. So you should be able to get your hands on a supply of hand sanitizer, maybe easier than consumers can out of the grocery store or other small shops. All right, so some things are worth repeating. This was a quote that I shared with you last week, and I think it's really important to just keep hammering away at this idea. A year from now, you may wish you had started today. That could apply to anything, but consider some of these ways of exceeding your customers' expectations. Can you offer free pickup and delivery starting now? And looking back next year, what will your gross profits look like? What will your CSI look like if customers have that convenience that they really like and have proven that they will take advantage of when it's available? All right, now Kim's going to talk about some additional ways to drive traffic, but first we want to consider the fact that you have had some expenses have potentially gone up in your stores, and so how can we create value for what you're spending on supplies and things like that? So Kevin, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Kristen. And so I want to talk real quickly about a couple of things that we're looking at that are different today than just a few years ago or a few months ago, quite frankly. One of the things that we're running into is that we have a lot more expenses in our dealerships than we had just a few months ago since the development of the COVID-19. So let's talk about a couple of these additional expenses and what they are for us. First, we have disinfectants. We have masks, hand sanitizers, spray guns, equipment that we're having to purchase and invest in to be able to better support our customers in this new environment. Now we have also additional labor expenses. We've got who is it that we're paying to sanitize the customer areas, the employee areas, how often are they having to do it? All of that's costing us money. We're having to invest in customer vehicles, transportation between the customer, getting their vehicles to and from them, or shuttle services, loaners, different things like that. We have pickup and delivery service as well. Are you extending your shop hours? If you are, now you have additional power bills. You have additional staffing bills as far as having people in for additional time in the stores. With all of this being said, you may in fact have to adjust some of your pricing in order to pay for some of these additional expenses. And the only way to do that effectively is you have to build value with your customers. And through building value, we will rev up our service sales now. So how do we build value? Well, one of the things we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about phones and how we can do it through phones, because that is going to be our very first impression with the customer. But before I go there, I want to tell you a story real quick about one of my recent service phone calls that I had with an aftermarket service facility and how aggressive they are now. So not too long prior to everything happening with the COVID-19, I was calling around checking service pricing and seeing how quick the different facilities could get people in for service. I called an aftermarket facility, and they started telling me about how they would be able to do all the wonderful things to my vehicle as far as the services go. But one thing that they said that really shocked me is they started talking about the restaurant next door and how that if I brought my car in now and got everything done, I could go next door, have a great lunch, And when everything was completed, my car would be ready to go. And I wasn't even hungry. But all of a sudden, now I kind of wanted something. And I kind of wanted to go over there and get my car service just so I could go have lunch because they talked about how great it was. That's how aggressive people are getting and businesses are getting when it comes to driving people into their stores and getting service work done. So think about that. So what is our primary mission when answering a phone? The first and primary mission has to be to sell the appointment. We have to get the customer in the door. So we need to focus around easing the customer's stress. Prior to the whole COVID-19, calling for service was already a very stressful situation for people because you're not sure what it's going to cost. You're not sure what exactly is wrong with the car. You're scared as to how long you're going to be without your car. You're having to make arrangements to do things differently. It's already a stressful event. Now, on top of that, we have to worry about the health aspect of it. So it's even more stressful. So one of the primary things we want to do is put people at ease. We want to provide a resolution to customers. We want to make sure that we can provide them accurate and honest information as to how to fix their problem. And quite honestly, we can't do that until we get the car in the store. So we have to sell that appointment. We need to get on and off the phone as effectively and efficiently as possible without rushing the customer. You and I both know that if given the opportunity, a lot of our customers will get on the phone and start talking about things that happened to them 20 years ago or to their Aunt Mary on their way to Uncle Joe's funeral. It drags out forever. And right now, more than ever, we have more phone calls, more phone traffic, and we need to spend more time, effort, and energy on those customers that are in our stores. And so our time is more important than ever, and we have to be efficient with it. And lastly, we want to exceed the customer's expectations. We want to make sure that we provide to them what it is that they're looking for or beyond what they're looking for. So why do we need an effective phone process? Well, here's some interesting information from J.D. Powers. According to research, for every 5 incoming service phone calls, 1 results in an appointment. That's a customer calling up saying, I would like to have my car serviced Tuesday at 2 o'clock. 1 is checking the status of their vehicle, and that way, just getting an update as to where they are with everything else. But here's our biggest opportunity. 3 of the calls are actually information calls. These are people looking for a price, wanting to know availability as to when they can come in, different information like that. We're going to talk a little bit more about those here in a minute as well. So let's talk about the impact of customer retention on new vehicle sales. This also, according to J.D. Powers, states that 18.4% of people who have no service performed at the automotive dealer are likely to purchase their next vehicle from that specific dealer. 35.6% who have had some service performed are now likely to purchase their next vehicle from that dealer. So if we can get you in just some, we now have doubled the likelihood that they're going to purchase that car from your dealer. If we can get you in within 90 days, okay, now we've almost got a 50-50 chance of selling them their next vehicle. But here's the big one. 76% of customers who have all of their services performed at that new car dealer are likely to purchase their next vehicle from that store. And I'm sorry, this was not from J.D. Powers, it was actually from Chrysler that gave this information. But 76%, that's 3 out of 4 customers are going to purchase their next vehicle from that dealer. So that's the reason why customer service and building value is critical to driving people back into our stores. Here's some additional shocking facts on incoming service phone calls. 86% of advisors attempt to diagnose a customer's problem over the phone. Here's another one. 81% give out mechanical repair prices before they really know what's wrong with the car. Let's think about this for a minute. 86% attempt to diagnose. We know our best technician can't do that. 81% are giving out prices, and we can't give out prices till we diagnose. It's crazy numbers. Let's keep going. 95% quote higher prices than independent shops, allowing customers to go elsewhere. 95% of our advisors are quoting higher prices. They're throwing out big numbers because they've had their faces bit off because they gave out a huge number or a small number, and all of a sudden it ended up being a little bit more. And so they're going to always default to the higher number, thinking that they're going to save themselves some frustration on the service drive, but ultimately we end up walking the customer. And we'll talk more about that as well. 57% don't even ask the customer for an appointment. We don't even ask them to come in. And we just said earlier, our primary mission is to sell the appointment. So why is it that these numbers are occurring like they are? And it's not because we don't know what to do. We all know we shouldn't be diagnosing. We all know we shouldn't be giving prices. But we're doing this because, quite frankly, we're nice people. When somebody asks us a question, we do our best to answer the question as best we can. Well, the problem is that we're giving inaccurate information and we're allowing the customer to control that call, which is why 57% of advisors don't get an opportunity to ask for an appointment. Because once they answer the customer's questions, the customer very simply says, okay, thank you, and they hang up. So why are we not quoting mechanical repair prices? Well, we mentioned it a little bit earlier in that quoting a price before a technician has inspected a vehicle is nothing more than a guess. You know what? A few years ago, we could quote some things a little more legitimately because cars were mechanical. They were pretty simple. If a transmission didn't shift, it was a broken transmission. You knew that. Nowadays, it can be something as simple as a computer update that completely changes the whole shifting of that transmission and the whole experience for that customer. But we don't know what the issue is until we have a certified technician inspect that vehicle. The customer's shopping for a price. So if we're throwing out prices, all we're doing is we're making it more difficult for us to gain that customer's business. So we want to make sure that we're quoting an accurate price and a price that's consistent with exactly what's wrong with the car. If we do quote a price that is higher than the initial estimate, now the customer thinks you lied. So if we quote a low price and the customer comes in and it turns out it's a little bit more, now all of a sudden you've got that bait and switch thing going on where the customer thinks you jerked them around or you were trying to rip them off. So it's a lose-lose situation. Will each employee give out the same price? If you call a dealer and you ask multiple employees, or if you're in a dealer, as I am very frequently, and I ask different advisors, hey, how much is a brake job? You'll get $50, $100 difference between two different people. And it's because most of them are quoting what either they see pretty regularly, or maybe that last brake job that they sold. And it may not have anything whatsoever to do with this specific customer or situation. Remember that the aftermarket is trained to quote low prices and get the customers in the door. I've been in the automotive industry for almost 28 years. It's my first 17 years were with the aftermarket world. And I can tell you right now, that was our primary accountability process in our facilities, were the phones. There was a zero tolerance policy, and it was expected that we were aggressive on phones. And we always quoted an as low as price to get customers in the door, and then we sold. So no, that's what you're up against. Why are we not diagnosing? Well, also, even the best technician has to inspect the vehicle. We know that because if you go to a senior master technician and you say, hey, I've got a customer that's got this going on, what do you think it is? You know as well as I do, that technician's going to look at you and he's going to say, you got to be kidding me. You know I can't tell you anything until I get it in. Well, why are we doing it? Why do we keep trying to do it? If you're wrong, the customer thinks, or if you are wrong with your estimate or with your attempted diagnosis of the phone, now the customer thinks you're incompetent. It leads the customer to the next question, which is how much does it cost? So now we get a lot of the customer twice. We always want to avoid quoting price and diagnosing over the phone because there is zero value to your customers or to you in doing so. This is one of the primary reasons that we have a process in place. So let's talk a little bit about driving one more customer into our store. Here's an example of a store with 6 advisors. So one more appointment per day per advisor with a 22-day working month. You're looking at an additional 120 ROs per month. If you're averaging 1.5 hours per RO at $90 effective labor rate, 75% gross margin, labor margin, an 80% parts to labor ratio with a 45% parts margin, we are looking at $215,000 or 215,784 in additional gross profit per year. That's nearly $250,000 that we are driving in additional gross profit. That is huge. So we have to do a lot. We have to take advantage of these opportunities for us. Here's a little bit of as far as how it breaks down. As you can tell, the majority of that comes through the service side of it and then parts. So let's talk a little bit about customer communication and how we can exceed customers' expectations. So number one is you are the customer's first impression. Remember this. Many customers, when they call into that dealer, how you receive them and how you speak to them is going to be their first impression. Do you want their business? Are you excited to have their business? Or are you annoyed by them? Before we answer a call, we need to put a smile on our face. People can hear it. While I'm sitting here doing this presentation for you, I'm smiling, I'm bouncing around, I'm doing all kind of fun things. Look like a moron in my house all by myself. But I'm doing this because I know that if I'm excited, you're going to get excited and you're going to want to deal with me versus somebody that's just bland and boring and kind of annoyed by all of this. You don't want anything to do with that, and our customers don't want anything to do with that either. We need to clear our mind of all negativity. We want to be positive. Always tell people what you can do and not what you can't. Instead of saying, I don't know the answer, say something like, let me find someone who can help you and get that answer for you. Or give me just a moment and I'll give you a call right back. And I can tell you exactly what we're going to do. Anything that's going to give that customer the impression that, you know what, I've got the person here that's going to fix my problem. Because remember, they're stressed and they're frustrated as they're going through this. So the more confident you are, the more confident they will be. We want to focus when we answer the customer or when we answer that call, that customer feels like they are the most important person in the world. We cannot be distracted by a whole bunch of other things. So we want to make sure that once we decide to answer that phone and once we commit to answering that phone, we are completely committed to that customer in front of us or on that phone. We want to answer that call as quickly as possible, preferably within 3 rings. Everybody knows that when it goes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rings, the customer gets annoyed, as well as if you have customers in your service drive, they're going to be frustrated with it. So the faster we can get to that phone call, the faster we can take care of that customer and the happier everybody will be. We want to greet with something like, thank you for calling ABC Service. This is Kevin. I can help you. Versus, how can I help you? Or can I help you? Something like that. No, I can help you. Because we want them to know they've got the right person. They've made the right call. We want to control the conversation through putting that customer at ease and giving them choices. We want to actively listen to them. This builds trust and allows the customer to understand and appreciate that they're dealing with somebody that truly cares about them and their problem. If we cut people off or we don't allow them to tell their side, now all of a sudden they get frustrated and it just is not a good impression to give. And we always want to beware of misinterpretation. We want to speak plainly, avoid lingo, little internal slang, different things like that. And remember that people read into what you say. So we've got to be careful. You know, again, if you say something that's negative or can be perceived as negative, next thing you know, the whole situation becomes negative. We want to ask open-ended questions. These are questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no. We want to encourage our customers to open up. We want them to tell us what they're experiencing, and that way we can better guide them into the places that best benefits them. And we're going to talk about scheduling and positioning customers where it's best for them here in just a moment. This allows you to gather information, and these open-ended questions typically begin with words like who, what, when, where, how, why, and tell me about. It requires more than a few words to respond, and it allows us to get the information that we need. Now, if we're talking about a closed-ended questions, these are the questions that typically require a yes/no answer. They're very short, they're very direct, and they force the customer to choose. These typically begin with can, may, are, did, is, will, and have. Always beware that closed-ended questions can prevent you from getting the information that you need. So we only want to use those when we need to. And we're going to talk about that here in just a moment as well. So here are a couple of examples of some open-ended questions that we have, as well as some closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions might be, what speed were you driving? How often does it occur? When do you want to get started? Why do you think you need a transmission service or whatever? What is your most important priority? Tell me about your concerns. Some of the closed-ended questions that we're going to ask, maybe, may I help you? Does that make sense? Are you ready to have your transmission service? Can you give me an example? Is morning or afternoon better for you? And can you describe it for me? We want to be very pointed and very directed. We always want to control the conversation. The way we control the conversation is through giving customers options. Situations like agree, disagree, yes, no, different way, things like that. When closing an appointment for a customer or closing a sale, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute as well, how do we do that? This forces the customer to make a decision or a choice, and it allows the customer to focus and simplifies their decision. What you've got to understand is that one of the things that we do a lot of times that really complicates the customer and stresses customers out is we say, hey, when would you like to bring your vehicle in? Well, what we do is we give them an infinite option of times, and that's very overwhelming for people. It's very similar to saying, where would you like to go to dinner tonight? There's a million different options. You don't know. But if you say, hey, would you like to bring it in today or tomorrow? That's a lot easier. People know what they're doing today or tomorrow, and they can tell you very quickly, morning or afternoon, and 2 different times. And if you go to a doctor's office or you were to call a doctor's office, that's exactly the experience that you'll have. And that's exactly the type of things that we're going to do as well. So leading questions, these lead the customer in a certain direction. We want to gain, or we want to direct the customer where we would like them to go. We use these when closing an appointment or sale, and we give the customers options or choices to follow up with closed-ended questions. Let me give you an example of somebody that recently exposed me to a very leading question and led me exactly where they wanted to go, and actually exposed me to something that I had no plans to want to do, quite frankly. I was going through a Wendy's drive-through. I order a little chicken sandwich, plain, meal, whatever. And the person over the intercom says, hey, how would you like cheese and bacon on that? And so I said, okay, went ahead and got it. Honestly, I didn't even hear what he said, but I went ahead and got it, and cost me another $1.50. And you know what? My chicken sandwich was a lot better. Now, every time I go through, I order it with cheese and bacon on it, simply because the way it was presented to me, it was presented with confidence, and it led me straight into something that I didn't even know I wanted. But now I do, and it was a great value to them and a great value to me. So let's talk about some of the either or questions or leading questions that we may have out here. I can have a factory trained technician inspect your vehicle on Wednesday or Thursday, whichever you would prefer. So we led them into either or there. Would morning or afternoon be better? Or 8:15, or excuse me, 8:10 or 9:25. So we're now able to guide that customer into where we want to go. Again, very similar to a doctor's office. What they're doing and what we would be doing is we want to position people where it's smart for our business. If it's a newer vehicle and they're coming in for an oil change and they say afternoon, we're probably going to schedule them around 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon, because we know we're not going to sell them much of anything probably, and customers going to be in and out. Now, if it's a 10-year-old car with 250,000 miles on it and they say afternoon, I want to make my availability as close to 12 o'clock as possible, because odds are I'm going to find something else wrong with that car, and I want to be able to sell it, and I want to be able to take care of that customer. And that's exactly what we want to do. Leading question would be something like, you never want to let a brake concern like yours go that long. I can have a technician inspect your vehicle Wednesday or Thursday, whichever is better for you. So we just led them through saying, hey, we know you don't want to be driving this car if it's unsafe or there's a problem. So let's get this taken care of and let's do it this way. Some challenges in answering service phone calls is making a positive impression in a short amount of time. As we talked about earlier, we want to be able to get on and off that call as quickly as possible. We want to take control of the conversation that wasn't initiated by us. So very simply, how do we do that? Well, one of the things that we can do to take control is simply ask questions, because the person that's asking questions is now the one leading the conversation. And so now the customer is having to respond to our questions instinctually, allowing us to better control and make sure that we're asking for that appointment. Our customers are prepared. We want to remember that when our customers are calling us, they're sitting in their lazy boy, they're sitting in their car, they're sitting in their office. They have scheduled time or taken time to do this. We are running around like a chicken with our head cut off, and we're having to react where they're prepared and proactive in their execution of the call. So that's another reason why we want to have a process in place to better allow us to manage this. Uh, Remember that our customers have already rehearsed their objections that they're going to bring in. Again, they are ready. So they've already thought about not just what they're going to say when they call, but they've thought about what you may say. And then they've thought about how they're going to respond to that. So they're very, very prepared for it. And we're just kind of hanging on. We want to make sure and listen to our customers, showing understanding and empathy for their situation. If you don't, they're not going to listen to you. They know if you're paying attention. And there's nothing worse than somebody telling you all of the situations and then you turning around and asking them, okay, now tell me your situation. It's very frustrating for them. They lose confidence in you. And if they lose confidence in you over the phone, odds are they're not going to trust you when they come in the store. So we need a script. Why? Well, because if you're doing a script, you're far more confident. If you do something over and over again, it allows you to now be a lot more confident in what you're doing versus the first time you do it, you're stumbling, you're bumbling, you're doing this, that, and the other. It allows you to gain control of the conversation. Again, we know exactly how to reroute that conversation or take that control from that customer, placing it in our hands, now allowing us to expedite the call, stay focused on the important things, and schedule that appointment. It prepares you for unpredictable situations. So if we now are instinctually controlling that call and managing all of the things that we can control, when it spins off in a little bit different direction, we're more comfortable pulling it back to where it needs to be. It allows for a consistent process for all employees to follow, because inconsistency, customers now begin to lose trust because they're wondering, what is it I'm going to get this time versus last time? Everybody knows you don't go to McDonald's because it's the best hamburger. You go there because you kind of know what you're going to get. And people like that. People like to know what they're going to get. You want to avoid quoting prices by relying on that script, allowing us to redirect that customer away from that price. You want to avoid diagnosing concerns, again, through the script. And we want to make sure that the customer has a consistent experience each and every time, again, helping them to gain trust, build that trust with you and with them. It increases the department's appointment to incoming call ratio, meaning we're going to drive more traffic into our stores, ultimately resulting in more money. So let's talk about a script versus a process. A script is a process when all employees follow, provides the customer with a consistent experience each and every time. And again, if we think about that, that's a very powerful thing. So let's talk about exactly what consistency does for us. Well, processes lead to consistency. Consistency leads to confidence. Confidence leads to trust. And trust leads to increased customer and employee satisfaction. So think about that for a minute. The more you do something, the more confident you are, the more confident you are, the more people trust you. The more people trust you, the more people are going to buy from you, the happier people are working for you. Ultimately, if people are happy and they want to shop with you and they want to stay with you as far as employee retention goes, what does that do? But it ultimately leads to increased profitability, which is our primary goal in a dealer, as everyone knows. So let's talk about the 4 levels of competence that are out there. The first is unconsciously incompetent. You do not know what you do not need to know. Very simply, I am unconsciously incompetent when it comes to brain surgery. I'm never going to perform brain surgery. You wouldn't want me to perform it. And I'm not going to use any of that brain space for that information because I know I'll never use it. Second is consciously incompetent. This is you do not know what you need to know. So if I'm a new hire that's just come on board at your dealership, I'm going to be consciously incompetent. I'm going to be open-minded to learn and to change, but I'm going to know, hey, I don't know what I need to know. I need to watch these people and see exactly what they're doing so that way I can now learn and grow. Then we become consciously competent. This is where you know things, but you don't know them so well that it's instinct. You're having to go to references, you're having to ask questions, but you're good. You're just not instinctual with it yet. And lastly, you've got unconsciously competent. This is where you know something so well that it now becomes completely natural or instinct. And you think about that. The very first time you drove a car, you were consciously incompetent. You knew you did not know what you needed to know. You started driving a little bit, you're still holding on tight, you're still thinking a lot when you're driving. This is as you're a teenager, well, at the beginning of being a teenager. And then once you get to unconsciously competent, this is where you know your roads so well, you don't even have to think about it. You just drive home and your body does it. Well, that's what processes do for you, and that's what script will do for you as well. The more we do it, we become unconsciously competent, ultimately resulting in a higher level of confidence from not only the advisor or the staff member, but from the customer. So why professional script? Well, most people are generally concerned about using scripts because they think they sound like a robot or like they're not able to put their own style or personality into it. Well, we at Dealer Pro here, we go to a lot of trouble to make sure that our advisors are part of the script building process. And we want it to be their words, but we want them to be specific enough to where they are in control of that conversation and they are able to guide customers and use key phrases that are important in their words. So an example might be, we talk about a certified technician or a factory trained technician, so that way we build value in what we bring to the table, because as dealers, we bring a lot to the table from that standpoint. You know that the aftermarket, they take all of that gravy work from you and they do all the little maintenance stuff. But when things get tough, what do? They always refer it to the dealer. Well, we need to be proud of that. And that's one of the things that we can do in building our value with our customers. One of the things that a script does is it allows everyone already scripts themselves, even if they don't know it. The more you do things that are comfortable and you do them over and over again, because everybody knows that that's what makes you more and more confident with it. This PowerPoint is nothing more than a script for us. It's something that we've done a million times over, and it allows us to be able to speak with confidence to people and still hit the points that we know we need to hit. And as you can tell through the course of this presentation, you see the slides, you hear me talking. Not always are my words exactly what's on the slide, but I'm saying the same thing with my own personality. That's what your phone script should look like. Professional phone scripts are designed with the necessary objectives in mind. We know that it makes our people more successful if they practice and if they do things over and over again. Then your personality begins to shine through, and people now become much more confident in themselves and in the customer or the transaction. First, we need to qualify the call. What type of call is it that we're dealing with? Is it a status call? If it is, or is it an appointment call, an information call, a price call, a diagnostic call, an emergency call, or a warranty call? We're going to talk a little bit about different ways that we handle these different types of calls here in just a moment. We here at Dealer Pro, we typically have 7 different scripts that we have written to allow us to better guide customers into our stores or into the appointment based upon their concerns and their needs. And so we've got the vehicle status calls. Of course, that's someone calling to ask, when's my car going to be ready? We've got the appointment call. And then we've got those information calls that we talked about earlier. All right. Vehicle status calls. This is the primary job of the advisor. Uh, Sometimes BDCs are engaged in these, but quite honestly, we don't like that. One of the primary missions of the advisor is to communicate with their customers, update them on the specifics. And if we are channeling it through a BDC, a lot of times that's going to frustrate the customer because they're not going to get all the information they need, and ultimately resulting in a poor customer experience. If a customer is calling on special order parts, of course, we want to verify that those parts have arrived before we do schedule anything there. If someone's calling for an appointment, we want to ask for the appointment. That is our number one primary mission when taking that appointment call. We want to take control of that conversation. Remember how we do that? We do it through asking questions. We offer the alternate choices of 2, 2, and 2. That's what we talked about earlier with today or tomorrow, or Monday or Tuesday, morning or afternoon, and then 2 specific times. Again, removing the stress from that customer, simplifying it, and guiding them into the place where it not only benefits the customer, but it also benefits the business. We want to manage expectations. We want to make sure that the customer has a realistic expectation when they come in. If we're going to exceed their expectations, we've got to make sure that we give them realistic ones. So we want to make sure that if they're going to have to leave the car with us, they know that before they get there. They're not blindsided, and they're now prepared for it. We want to verify the customer's information because we all know cars change hands, people get married, people get divorced. There's a lot of different things that happen in people's lives. So we want to make sure that things stay, that we have the most accurate information regarding that customer on hand. We want to get the approximate mileage of the vehicle. This allows us to be able to prepare the customer for any upcoming services that may be due. That way they're not blindsided and they understand what's coming. And then we want to recap all of the information back to the customer. If the customer is calling for a price, we want to avoid quoting a price. So let's give an example. Customer calls up and says, I need to get a price on brakes. What we might do is we might say, well, what makes you think you need brakes? And the reason that we want to do that is because now we want the customer responding to us. So we've taken control of that conversation. Now, some people are not comfortable saying, what makes you think you need brakes? So you might say, tell me a little bit about what the car is doing. The customer is going to tell you the condition. It doesn't matter what they say to you because your next statement is going to be, have you had it inspected by a GM certified technician or Toyota certified technician or factory trained technician? Their answer has to be no. I can have one take a look at it today or tomorrow, whichever works better for you. And then we go into the 2, 2, and 2. So that's exactly the way that our professional script is written. We again manage the customer's expectations and we verify the customer information exactly the same as earlier. We're going to get the approximate mileage and we're going to recap back to the customer. If they are calling for a diagnosis, we are in a great time in the automotive world today because cars have changed so much. I mentioned it earlier. Used to be cars were mechanical. They were simple. Now they're not. We need to make sure and educate customers on that because they don't understand why a few years ago you would give them a diagnosis over the phone and now you won't. It's simply a matter of communication. So we want to never diagnose. We want to take control of the call. In this case, we may say something like most drivability concerns are rarely serious. Remember, we talked about putting those customers at ease. That's the primary mission of that dialogue there. We want to actively listen to the customer about exactly what's going on with their vehicle, so that way they now have that trust with you. Offer the alternate choices of 2, 2, and 2. Manage the expectations. Verify the customer information. Get the approximate mileage, and of course, recap back to the customer. All exactly the same as those other scripts that we went through earlier. They're just a little bit different. So the more confident we get in active listening and asking for the appointment through offering alternate choices and managing the expectations, verifying the customer information, you're doing that over and over and over and over again, ultimately allowing you to become unconsciously competent or instinctive in your responses to those customers, making us much more confident, making the customer much more confident. If you are dealing with an emergency call, we want to identify their concern. We want to take control of the conversation through asking those questions. If it's not an immediate concern, we want to schedule an appointment. Obviously, most emergencies are immediate, so we want to be able to guide that customer on that appropriately as well. We need to actively listen to the customer, allowing us to build trust. If it is something that they need to bring in immediately, we want to make sure and communicate that. It might be something like a drivability concern or a safety related issue with brakes, overheating, something like that. If a check engine light's flashing, obviously now that's a serious issue versus one that maybe is just a solid light. We want to get the approximate mileage of the vehicle, and we want to recap and manage the expectations. In this specific case, we might say something like, our service department will diagnose the concern, and I'll give you a call and let you know exactly what we find in approximately 2 hours. So that way now the customer knows that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We've got a little video here that we're going to share with you, and I'm going to pass this back to Kristen. She's going to complete the call here. I appreciate everyone's time. And Kristen, I'm going to give it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
If I can get my screen up here. All right, so we got past this. So we're going to play this video. This is a video we use in our training center. It's from, I believe, Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers. A great video, kind of demonstrates the ideas of process, following process, consistency, and being unconsciously competent, although I will say she's lacking in some other skills, but here you go.
Enjoy your flight, Ben. Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. We're only boarding rows 9 and above right now. You'll have to wait.
I'm in row 8.
Please step aside, sir.
It's just one row. Don't you think it's okay?
We'll call your row momentarily. Step aside, sir. Thank you for waiting. We'd like to continue boarding the aircraft now. We're now boarding all rows, please. All remaining rows. Hello. Enjoy your flight. Enjoy your flight.
All right, so it really does demonstrate how someone can get so good at one skill that they don't have to think twice about it. But like I said, she's lacking a little bit in the personality department, and the flexibility department. But lastly, we just want to remind you again, as we do every week, we do have resources for you that we want to share with you at no charge. This is our 7th week of online forums. You can find all those archived on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, type in Dealer Pro Training. Dealer Pro is all one word. They will also be up on our website here in the next day or two. We also are offering you 30 days of online fixed ops selling skills content. There's over 88 chapters for advisors and managers at no charge. Just go to dealerprovtn.com, or you can email me or anybody at Dealer Pro to inquire about that, and we'll get you set up for free. There are white papers, podcasts, and things like that on our website. All great resources, really good content in those that you could make use of and take advantage of. And then if you want to qualify for our 3-day in-dealership reboot training plan that we're offering in the month of May, go to this link here. We'll also be sending out an email, a separate email with that link and more information. We just need a couple questions answered. We do want to verify that these are U.S. dealerships that are qualifying for these. Right now, we're limited on our travel to Canada, is why we're not including Canada, but at this time. But if you are interested in that 3-day reboot package, it's significant savings off of our traditional training. We know that everybody's on a tight budget, and so we just want to be there to help any way we can. If you need to have any questions or anything like that, you can email me, kwilliams@dealerprotraining.com, or call 614-406-7306. Next week, we're going to talk about selling service while social distancing. So how do you build value with your customers while you're having to either sell remotely or sell with really not having seen or spoken to them much at all. Maybe you have to do it through email. And then we'll also have specific information on sanitizing and disinfecting products. We've done quite a bit of research with regard to that, how you can use that to market your service department to get customers in the door and help them feel confident in doing business with you. So thank you again for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing or talking with you next Friday.